Good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. I thought that this week we would look at some of the writing of Trevor Hudson. Trevor asks us to imagine Jesus saying, "Come to me, all you who are lonely, and I will give you friendship." So many of us believe that Jesus is far more interested in sorting out the sin in our messed up lives than sharing friendship. And Trevor says that for a long time he believed that Jesus' focus was on sorting out the sin in our lives. But over time he's come to realize that Jesus really and truly desires friendship with us. Jesus wants to meet us in our loneliness. He wants to befriend us. None of us is a stranger to loneliness. We have all known that deep, deep ache of the human heart. Mother Teresa once said that loneliness was the leprosy of the contemporary world. However, we don't like to talk about loneliness, and we are never likely to admit that we ourselves are lonely. If we are lonely, we are often ashamed of being lonely, and we're certainly too ashamed to tell anybody. It's as if there's something wrong with us if we are lonely. Loneliness is such a difficult reality to sit with, to be with. And so sometimes we try to numb it by destructive behavior, by abuse of alcohol and drugs, by overeating, by sexual relationships that are not helpful, by unfulfilling relationships, anything to simply not be alone, and by bitterness, because if we reject the world before it rejects us, then somehow we are not lonely. We have chosen our isolation. And so loneliness can have very destructive and damaging side effects, especially if we hug it to ourselves and won't admit it to anyone else. But when we do admit it, loneliness can draw us into deeper friendship with God and with each other. There are many aspects to loneliness, though. Often we only associate loneliness with people who live alone. But there is a big difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness occurs when we feel disconnected from others in such a way that we feel ignored, overlooked, and not valued for who we really are. Loneliness is that painful ache in our hearts for intimate connection, belonging, and companionship. And loneliness has many faces. One of them being the loneliness of leadership, where because of a person's position, people find it difficult to relate to that person. So if you are in a position of authority, people will often not want to bother you, believing you're too busy, or they think you don't have time to bother with them. And so leaders face a deep loneliness because they are not free to share as others do, and may find themselves working with many people but having very few intimate relationships. Many of us may experience the loneliness of superficial relationships. We may be in a crowd, in a church, in a club, in a family, in a school, but none of our relationships offer any intimate connection. That happens in many, many marriages. Celebrities too feel this loneliness. They have adoring fans, but no one really connects with them. No one really knows who they are. And in the era of the internet, we may have thousands of friends on Facebook or Instagram, but very few of them would be intimate and deep connections. When life utterly overwhelms us at the point of shattering us, we become depressed, and in that state we can feel the pain of feeling utterly alone. A place where dark and morbid thoughts fill our minds, making us not want to engage with life at all, and in many cases not wanting to live at all. Depression robs us of a zest for living. And so often people will stay away from those with depression because they feel powerless to help and simply have no idea what to say. Loss also produces utter loneliness, and we experience loss constantly. The loss of innocence through child abuse, the loss of trust through betrayal, the loss of health through illness, the loss of confidence through failure, the loss of marriage through divorce, the loss of home through exile, the loss of those we love through death. And then there is another kind of loneliness, a loneliness that doesn't have a name really, but it is our basic spiritual loneliness. It is in fact the loneliness of the soul. This is often identified by the feeling that though life is going well, something is missing. Or perhaps we sense this loneliness as a searching and longing for something that is beyond ourselves. It's as if each and every one of us is born into a space of aloneness. There are things in our lives that we have to face on our own. But it is here that Jesus offers us friendship and the reminder that though we are physically alone, we are never spiritually alone. And so this week we want to look at the friendship that Jesus offers us as an antidote to loneliness. We don't have to feel lonely. Jesus offers us a living friendship. Amen.